It's happening right. Welcome back. Here we are in our a little bit of a different setting, as I explained last week, to 62 Who Knew. But wait till you see the studios when Mr. John Gaston, founder of WeBeam TV, is done remodeling them. They are going to be beautiful. In fact, if you're in Florida, I might even go as far as saying they're going to be huge. Only the people in Florida will know what that means. But they're going to be beautiful when they're done. Welcome to 62 Who Knew. Tonight we have a fantastic guest, Mr. Bill Borton, who for decades has had his own successful financial planning practice. And he started a television show called Live Better Longer. Sounds a lot like 62 Who Knew. We've never personally met, but we've been connected on LinkedIn. And the more we read about each other and saw what we did in our mutual posts, it's like he has the same goals in Malton, New Jersey, as we do here in the west coast of Florida. We connected with each other and said, we got to be on each other's shows. It's going to be a great show, and I'm going to bring him on in just a few minutes. But as always, I do want to thank our guest from last week, Mr. Sean Yesner, who has a Crushing Debt podcast, who also wrote a book, Crushing Debt. It's one of our most popular shows. He really did show us, I learned a lot about a lot of those creditors out there that are bullying you, and you just don't have to take it. So that's a good thing. Thank you again for showing. We had another great week with 40,000 plus viewers. We're pushing to be over 50,000, and the goal is over 100,000 before the end of the year. And as I keep mentioning, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, look forward to the 62 Who Knew podcast that'll be launched in the next 4 to 6 weeks. But again, let's give a quick synopsis for the new people that are just watching, and I hope our audience that is loyal to us, the 40,000 plus, I hope you share the show as you like the topics that we cover. But what is 62 Who Knew? Simply put, 62 Who Knew deals with the blessing or the mixed blessing of longer lifespans. Every person, every generation, my father, his father before him, and it continues to go, has the same thoughts as they approach their early 60s. Should I take my Social Security, or should I defer it and keep working till a later date? Did I save enough money? Should I invest in stock market, or should I do more conservative things like annuities? Do I need long-term care insurance? And if I don't have it, is it too late in my late 50s, early 60s to get? Do I need to keep my life insurance? There are so many things. Let's not forget, should I consider a reverse mortgage? There are so many things to consider as we approach retirement, and no generation has had anything different until today's generation, till my generation, the baby boomers. I just turned 61 just about a month ago, and my generation has a different obstacle than any other generation has ever had. And what is that? Longer lifespans. Modern breakthroughs in medicine, technology, and science over the last several decades, you just cannot argue with the point of what has happened and how we're living longer. Certain childhood diseases, God, this makes me sound so old, when I was younger, like the mumps, chickenpox, measles, Today's children don't even know they exist. Many cancers in both men and women, if found at an early enough stage over the last 20 to 30 years, are almost curable between 90 and 95%. We make leaps and bounds on a constant level. Gene therapy, stem cell therapy, immunotherapy. We're living longer and longer. And although that does sound like a blessing, if you in fact make it to 62 in this country, you have better than a 50-50 chance of making it into your 90s. And the truth is, in this great country, less than 1% of the public, that includes me, can financially retire in their early 60s and live another 30 years. 62, who knew at 62 that you have at least half the amount of time that you've already been on this planet still to be here? And this show is based around bringing you guests every week that have a specialty and level of expertise in Social Security, long-term care insurance, life insurance, in-home care, annuities, Medicare, Medicaid. The list is incredible. Travel, health. We keep expanding it every week, and that's why our audience keeps growing. It has been a very well-accepted theory, and we thank you all for that. And tonight, our guest is no exception. As I said earlier, Mr. Bill Borton and I have been connections. That's like Facebook friends, but in LinkedIn language, we're connections. We've never met, but this man has dedicated decades of his life in the financial planning world to assisting people have a longer life, but not just a longer life, a higher quality of life. And he does that through the planning and with working with other financial advisors. He started a television show called Live Better Longer with almost the same premise as 62 Who Knew. So when we met each other on LinkedIn, we decided we needed to be on each other's television shows, share our audience, share what we do. And I'm just so excited to have this man. I can't wait to shake hands and break bread with him and meet him in person one day. For the time being, we have him beaming in to 62 Who Knew. Let's bring him up right now, Mr. Bill Borton. How are you, sir? Welcome to 62 Who Knew.
I'm splendid, Mike. It's just another day in paradise up here in the Delaware Valley.
Yes, it is. You were telling me hot and muggy, just like here in Florida, huh?
Not quite so bad. We had a really hot stretch for about a week there, but it's a little bit more like June instead of August.
Well, that's good. I am looking so forward to October. Basically, as soon as June hits, since I've gotten older, and don't tell anybody, a little heavier, I just can't stand June, July, and August and September in Florida. The heat is unbearable. I'm old.
I was down in the summer down in Fort Myers area and in the summer, and I couldn't wait to get back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I love San Diego so much. It's Florida without the humidity.
Yes.
Well, before we get going, number one, thank you. You know, we met each other on LinkedIn, as so many business people meet. I can't wait to sit down and break bread with you one day, meet you in person, be a guest on your show. We have so much in common, little different backgrounds, but you have dedicated your career to helping people live better and live longer. You have two of my favorite books behind you. I do know, by the way, we might as well get this out of the way, I am not your favorite reverse mortgage person in the world. Usually when I bring on a guest, I am their favorite reverse mortgage person. But your favorite reverse mortgage person is Mr. Don Graves. And you know what? He's my favorite reverse mortgage person, too. So you get a pass on that one because he's unbelievable. Just a gentleman in every sense of the word.
The old Kentucky boy.
He is. And you get a pass on this one. I'm okay. Usually I don't want to be number two, but I'll be number two behind Don Graves any day of the week. But before, go ahead.
He's up here in Philly as well.
Yes.
And Don and I have done business together, and we break bread, and he's just become a really good friend. And actually, he's been on my show twice now.
Yep. He's just, you know, it's an old-fashioned expression that our fathers used. But Don is just good people. You know, besides being a true professional at what he does, he's just good people. And that's a good thing to find sometimes in today's crazy world. So
Indeed.
Before we go on to real questions, I ask my guests the same question at the very beginning, no matter whether they're an attorney, a health food expert, Social Security, Medicare, it doesn't make a difference. You've picked a very specific thing in life with very specific goals. Many times it's personal, sometimes it's not. But I want to ask you, what made the much, much younger Bill Borton a certain amount of time ago say, not only do I want to be a financial advisor, but I want to help people live better and live longer? What brought you into this?
Well, I'm going to start off by correcting you just a little bit.
Okay.
I got my life and health and property and casualty licenses back in May of 1983, which means I'm 36 years with insurance license.
Mm-hmm.
And so my early part of my career was selling car and home insurance. And then I got recruited into the life insurance business. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't quite with the right company at the time. It wasn't a good experience. And then I found the Northwestern Mutual, where I spent a decade.
Great company.
Where they had great training program, great products. It was a good run until it wasn't anymore. I got bored, and I was just getting the itch to do something else. And I got recruited into the employee benefits space, okay, which is where I spent half my career, over 17 years. And so I was doing health and welfare benefits, and for a while some retirement plan work with mostly mid-sized employers, again, mostly up here in the greater Philadelphia area. And that was a really good run until the Great Recession hit, and
I remember that.
And healthcare reform became inevitable. And I started seeing the writing on the wall and said, I do not want to grow old doing this anymore. And so I took a look at my experience, life experience, career experience, my network, my professional designations from the American College, things that I was passionate about. And I also read a book by Daniel Burrus called Flash Foresight, where he talks about predicting the future based on trends. And I took a look and saw the baby boomers aging. You talked about that a little bit in your intro. And I saw that there was going to be a huge need for boomers to figure it out, as I like to call it. And so the two things that got me in my current career path were a 17-year senior to me, friend and mentor, who contacted me out of the blue and said, I need long-term care insurance right away. Bottom line was his wife had agreed to let him stay out of a continuing care retirement community as long as he got long-term care insurance. And so I had to research it. I said, first of all, try to turn him down. He goes, no. He goes, you're one of my best friends. I trust you. I want you to do this for me. So I did a lot of studying and a lot of research and quickly found out a lot that disturbed me about the current state of affairs with long-term care in the industry and the number of people that didn't have plans or policies. And so that was part of it. The other thing was that my parents both ended their lives with dementia. My mother earlier than my dad. She passed at 83. My dad's body made it to 94. His mind only made it to about 90. But I got to experience all the aspects of long-term care planning when you don't have a plan. And thankfully, my brother, sister, and I were able to triage and were able to get them squared away in a way so that we didn't have to become caregivers. And ultimately, they ran out of money after my mom died. My dad ran out of money and went on Medicaid. But it all worked out okay for them. So my siblings and I, we really dodged a bullet. Mm-hmm. But I became painfully aware of what the world of caregiving and long-term care is like when you don't have a plan. And so I said to myself, when I wanted to reinvent myself at age 58, what am I going to do? So I thought long-term care planning and insurance. And then I thought, well, who am I going to serve? Who am I going to sell? And so, they asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks. He said that's where the money is.
I like that.
I decided to focus on what I consider to be high net worth baby boomers. Mm-hmm. High net worth is 1 to 10 million of invested assets. And I don't know about down where you are, but up here in the greater Philadelphia area, there are thousands and thousands of people who meet that criteria. And I thought, well, there's not a lot of people competing with me. At the time I got in, all the big insurance companies that had been selling traditional long-term care were heading for the exits. And then the people were starting to get the rate increases and the headlines and all that. And so, gee, I'm going to get in while everybody else is running the other direction. And I thought, well, I'm either a genius or I need my head examined. But I like to think, in retrospect, that I was in the right place at the right time.
You made the right decision, no doubt.
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
So I also determined that if people who were in their 50s and 60s who had money were as smart as most of them thought they would be, they probably had some people advising them, probably an accountant, almost certainly some kind of financial advisor, whether they were really truly an advisor or not, but they had somebody who was collaborating with them on their behalf for at least the accumulation phase of their financial world.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, the guys that have got insurance licenses, the registered reps with the wirehouses and the broker dealers of the world, they're not going to see me as an ally. They're going to see me as either unnecessary or a competitor. So I decided to focus my attention on the fee-only RIA crowd. And then I specifically was looking for firms that had maybe 300 million to a couple billion of assets under management, figuring that they would have quite a few boomer clients that had money. And I thought, gee, this would be really smart. I focused a lot of time and attention on that segment of the advisory community, and I learned a number of things. One was a lot of these guys think that if you have $2-3 million of invested assets, you can self-fund. And I actually found one firm that said, gee, we run our spreadsheets, we run our Monte Carlos, we do all that. And so if they have enough money, we don't even bring it up. And I thought to myself,
What
wait
a
a minute.
terrible philosophy.
Fund a plan, but everybody needs a plan, whether you have no money and you're going to qualify for Medicaid with an elder law attorney, or if you got $100 million and you can fund it yourself, you still need a plan. You still need legal documents. You still need to convey your wishes in writing to the people that care about you and vice versa, or that advise you. And so it just became very apparent to me that this was an area where there was a huge unmet need. And so I decided to focus on all this. So over time, I started getting contacted by people who knew me, advisors, other people, accountants, attorneys, when their clients were turning 65 and they were getting barraged with mailers and phone calls about Medicare. So I learned about Medicare. So now I deal with people with Medicare supplements and help them figure out what Plan D to buy and things like that. Then a little while later, I started getting contacted by people who were either losing their jobs and had everybody wanting to help them with their 401k. The sharks smell the blood in the water.
Right.
Or, some of my clients were attending educational dinner seminars and learning about annuities. And so they would contact me because the know, like, and trust factor, as I like to call it.
Yes.
And so I learned about annuities. So I started thinking, gee, what am I really doing here? I'm managing risks in retirement that can be managed, and I'm getting into retirement income planning. So I kind of changed my wording around, and now I refer to myself as a retirement risk manager and income planner. And I tell people I'm an educator and a consultant, and I get paid on commission. Unfortunately, the insurance regulators, will not let me charge fees and earn commissions.
Right.
And if I charge fees, I'd starve to death. So I work on commission.
Most of us do.
I do some free consulting, but what are you going to do?
Yes, we all do that. Well, before we start with some questions, you mentioned something that's always been a sensitive topic to me, and let me make it clear. I will put my knowledge of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, specifically reverse mortgages, but all mortgages against anyone. But I am not a certified financial planner. I am not an independent financial advisor. I do not have an insurance license. So I don't have your level of expertise in so many things. But being a mortgage person that specializes in clients 62 and above, when I hear people, that have that net worth, I'm going to take it down a little, between $500,000 and $3 million. I think you had said $1 million and $3 million. I'm taking it down to $500,000 to $3 million. And their financial planner says to me, we don't even bring up long-term care insurance. They're self-insuring. It flabbergasts me. There is a number out there. Maybe it's 10 million, maybe it's 30 million. It's well above 3 million. where one catastrophe could wipe out such a large percentage of your net worth. Self-insuring is nothing but a huge gamble. Self-insuring when you have a couple of million, and this is my humble opinion, is the same thing as going to Vegas to the roulette wheel and putting your money on black and red. Your average person thinks you have a 50-50 shot, but Vegas is smarter than that. There are 2 0 squares on the roulette wheel, one with 1 0 and one with 2 zeros. And that little extra square makes it in favor of the house. So when somebody says to me, oh, yeah, I have a plan for long-term care, I'll pay for it myself, they better have a lot of millions in the bank, and they better not, and I hope nothing happens to them, but I don't get the self-insuring. I think that's a huge gamble.
Well, if you're married, chances are when you add the expenses for caregiving along with your spouse's regular living expenses, the income need in the household goes way up. But again, when somebody doesn't want to talk about a subject or doesn't want to buy insurance, any knee-jerk reaction will do. You kick the can down the road.
That's right.
And saying you're going to self-insure, let me correct you there. I say self-fund because an individual is not an insurance company.
That's right.
But you self-fund the perceived risk, chances are they haven't had the discussion with anybody, including their spouse or their adult children.
So true.
They haven't gotten the legal documents in place, the powers of attorney and the advance directives, and they haven't put any of their wishes in writing. And so therefore, they're just putting their head in the sand, and there you go. And so somebody once said, hope is not a strategy.
That's so true, yes.
So I tell people, though, that I can only help people that are willing and able to be helped. Willing or able, it has to be willing and able. There was an old Scotsman named Thomas Doer who said over 100 years ago, minds are like parachutes. They only function open.
That's right. My favorite motivational speaker, Tony Robbins, usually starts his daily things, his seminars and workshops with that exact quote. They only work when they're open. All right, so let's get a little more specific. Somebody calls Mr. Bill Borton on the phone and says, okay, I was referred to you. What services do you provide?
Well, again, I sell insurance and annuity products and get paid commissions on them, but they are the result of a process that begins with what I call the conversation. And it doesn't cost you a dime to have the conversation, and the conversation is that 60 to 90 minutes, usually face-to-face, but not always, because I have a lot of clients that have found me or have been referred to me all over the country. I even have a client in Florida. And so the conversation is where I find out from them what's on their mind. What do they want to know? What don't they want to know? Who have they been talking to? What are their concerns? Why? And so then we start to talk about prioritizing some of all this. And so if they decide they would like to continue the conversation with me beyond that first discussion, then I have to establish the ground rules. Again, time and money are not unlimited for any of us. And so, first of all, most people are a little bit surprised to find out that an insurance salesman has got conditions upon which he will talk to them.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I say, okay, first of all, I need full engagement. And they go, well, what's that? I go, well, you're married, aren't you, Mike? And, oh, no, my wife's not interested in any of this. I go, come on, get real. My wife is my majority shareholder.
Mm-hmm.
What's hers, what's mine is hers. And when she wants my opinion, she gives it to me.
Exactly.
You know? And so, is your situation much different? And no. All right, I'll talk to my wife. I say, second, Mike, before we go too far here in any of these conversations, I need to know what's possible. So I need brief health histories from each of you so I don't steer the conversation in directions that are inappropriate because it isn't possible. So can I get them from you? Sure, okay, no problem. Third, most important, I'm willing to bet that before you're going to commit six figures of your invested assets to a solution that I designed for you and your spouse, you're going to have another set of eyes review my work. And they go, well, yeah. And I go, so who do those eyes belong to? This is where I find out whether the other eyes are adversarial, a potential ally, or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So time and effort in to have somebody else convince them that they don't need insurance or that they can handle the insurance for them.
Yes.
So the conversation either ends or moves to the next phase. And then we get into the whole discussions around the needs and get all the facts, and we do all the educating and so on and so forth. And that's all around long-term care. Medicare is different. It doesn't come up as early in the conversation. Most of the clients that come to me for long-term care are in their 50s or early 60s. Medicare, everybody starts getting barraged when they turn 64. And so that's another phase of discussion. The income planning and the dreaded four-letter word annuity, that comes up at different times depending upon when people are retiring or planning to retire. So in addition, I talk about a lot of things that I don't make any money on, like Social Security and claiming strategies.
Right.
I'll send people towards a couple of software programs that my colleague Wade Pfau at the American College recommends. And I'll talk about reverse mortgages, the things that you and Don do, and why they're the first resort, not the last resort, for people who are looking to put a retirement income plan together. And we talk about sequence of returns risk, which I know that you know about. Michael Kitces talks about it. Tom Hegna talks about it. In fact, he just did a post on LinkedIn with the market going down about that and about how that can affect people. So really, it's what is it that the client needs or wants? Why did they come to me? What activating event occurred in their world?
Yes.
For them to reach out to me. And then we just go from there.
And who do you specifically, who would you think is your clientele? Is this somebody from 60 up, 50 up? I would think you want to catch somebody in their upper 40s, even low to mid 50s, to make sure this is right before they get to into the 60s and 70s and have fewer options. But who is your clientele? What's your demographic?
So on the low end, my youngest client came to me when he was about 47, and this was early in my new world here, which incidentally, yesterday was the 8th anniversary of W.R. Borton Associates. So
very good. Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still here, still smiling, still serving mankind.
Absolutely.
And, so at any rate, where did I go? I went off my rails here. So we were talking,
what is your clientele, that age group?
Yeah. He came to me and said he wanted to talk to me, and I thought, you got young kids. What are we talking about this? And he wouldn't tell me till I met with him. And when I met with him, he disclosed that he'd been diagnosed with MS when he was 25, and that fairly well controlled, and that he had an old life insurance policy with a permanent rating. And the agent that sold it to him, who's still around, said there was nothing that could be done. And so I was able to create a indexed UL with chronic illness rider policy for him that does not require permanence, but will be discounted. The benefit will be discounted at the time of chronic illness, depending on his age. And we were able to, for the same premium he was currently paying, get him about 35 or 40% more death benefit and the chronic illness benefit. And so he was thrilled.
I'm going to back you up just for a minute. And the only reason I know what you just said is because of the great guests I've had like you. I'm going to back you up, let you bring it down a little. I know you just described a universal life policy with different options on it. But a bunch of our viewers just went, what did he say? So go backwards and tell us again what you did for this client and bring it down a few levels for the layman like me.
Okay, so I get the health history after I talk to him, and I run it by underwriter from my long-term care wholesaler, and because I get a predetermination on everything. I don't like surprises.
Right.
So I determined that he was at worst going to be a table B, and that with this particular carrier, with the reinsurance agreements that they have, that we might be able to get him a standard rate. And ultimately, that was what happened.
And a standard rate means a lower premium. Just to throw
Yes.
that out
And
there.
so
Yes.
the same premium that he was paying to the big old mutual company that he'd been with since he was 29 from his college buddy, we were now able to take the death benefit. And again, it was about 35% higher than the policy that he had. And the policy that he had, there was no possibility that it would ever do anything for him for long-term care. The new policy has what's called a chronic illness rider. And the chronic illness rider comes under a section of the Internal Revenue Code called 101G. And normally, these riders require a chronic illness to be deemed permanent in nature. And so people who sell these policies to people, because there's no premium on the rider, the company takes their slice at the back end when it's claim time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the companies that sell these riders or these policies for these free riders require that the condition be deemed permanent. And so if you can't certify or your doctor can't certify that your chronic illness is permanent in nature, then you thought you had a benefit and you didn't really. And so not a good way to go. So in this guy's case, there was no other way. There was nothing else that could be done for him. And so we figured if his MS progressed, his condition would be deemed permanent. And I checked with the claims department at the insurance company, and they said, we do not require that. So he was happy as can be.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. That's a big improvement, 35% higher death penalty and more coverage during his life. That's incredible.
So my oldest client is a widow lady who's 78, and she wanted long-term care benefit, and there was no way we were going to get her a traditional policy or a linked benefit, life-linked hybrid type of policy. So we went with a long-term care annuity for her, and we were able to get her triple the amount of the single premium that she would pay.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to get inflation protection on the long-term care rider that's added to the deferred annuity. And so for her, that was a great solution. So those are the two extremes. Most of my clients come to me when they're in their mid-50s to their mid-60s.
Right.
But I'm finding more and more. There was a Barron's article that I was quoted in back in June, early June, and I was contacted by a 72-year-old scientist whose 68-year-old retired physician wife actually lives not far from me. And when I went to meet with them to talk about hybrid long-term care insurance, which is what he wanted to talk about, they disclosed that they had over $20 million in assets. And you still were looking at the tax benefits and the leverage that you can get with a long-term care policy.
Absolutely.
So even smart people like them understand that self-funding doesn't necessarily make sense.
Exactly. I've noticed, like a lot of professionals, with the years of experience that you have, you've chosen not to manage money.
Correct.
Don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's amazing how many people have not only made that choice, but how many money managers I know that have gotten away from money managing. What was your reason for that?
Well, I'm an insurance guy. And I know a lot of money managers or a lot of so-called money managers or a lot of financial advisors and so-called financial advisors. And a lot of them aren't really.
That's so true.
So I'm not going to go any further with it than that, but I'm a specialist. And I know some really, really, really good money managers who manage portfolios made up of individual securities. And then I know some people who simply use mutual funds and ETFs. And when you take a look at the mix of what they've got, they may own Apple stock in 3 different places. And, these are not money managers. These are people who are collecting fees for assets under management.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm seeing a lot of these folks starting to have problems is with the downward pressure on fees, robo-advisors, regulatory changes and the like, and their clientele are starting to age out, as I call it.
That's right.
Draw down, either voluntarily or because they get sick or need long-term care, or if one of them passes, the other spouse may take the money and run, go somewhere else.
Yep.
So I figured I would much rather collaborate with financial advisors who truly are financial advisors and do planning and are fiduciaries, and I'll manage the risk. And that way the client is the winner.
Absolutely.
When the DOL rule looked to be inevitable prior to the current administration coming in, I went and got my Series 65 investment advisor representative designation license. And I was thinking about becoming an RIA. And then I determined, no, I'm not going to do that. So I have solicitation agreements with 5 RIA firms in the Philadelphia area, so that if I bring them money to manage while I'm doing what I do, I could receive some of the fee. And so that's worked out okay so far.
Okay. Now let's talk about for a second your television show, Live Better, Longer. Like I said, when I first read your profile on LinkedIn, I went, wow, do I know this man? And why don't I know this man? How long has the show been on? Let me ask you that. We're about a year now.
I'm coming up in 2 years, the end of October.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So I was a guest on someone else's show on what's called RVN TV, which is similar to WeBeam, but I mean, maybe it's not quite as far along in its unfoldment, as I call it. But I was a guest on one fellow's show, and then another colleague of ours got his own show, and he invited me to be on. And the day that I went on his show, they had already kind of teed me up with the producer that I wanted to do a show. And so after I was on, I spoke to him and said, so what do you think? He goes, what's your show called? Live Better, Longer. What's it about? It's about helping baby boomers live better longer.
Yes.
He says, when can you start?
What's it about? It's a cooking show, Live Better. Of course.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. Yes.
The reason why I wanted to do it was because I need to differentiate myself from the other guys and gals out there. I'm not a big fan of prospecting. I'm not one of these 10-3-1 in the funnel guys where I have to do all that. I don't want to go dialing for dollars, doing dinner seminars. That's not my style. And so I need the transfer of trust. When I can't get the clients from other advisors or accountants or attorneys, I need to develop the trust on my own. And so I've been working diligently over these years to create a large amount of digital content, including my show. I have a YouTube channel where I have most of my shows. I have videos that I did with Jamie Hopkins and Dave Littell at the American College. I've been interviewed by a few other folks. And so I have copies of all these videos on my YouTube channel. And so that causes me to be very visible. I also mentioned I was published by Barron's. Well, Barron's has published me twice, Forbes a couple times. I wrote an article for the Society of Actuaries Long-Term Care News back in 2015. I've spoken to actuaries groups. And so I do everything I can to make myself different in good ways. And so I had a couple guys that were bugging the heck out of me to do podcasts. They wanted a lot of money to do a couple of months, transcribe them, and they wanted to manage my website. Well, I didn't need my website, and I didn't need podcasts to be transcribed. So I contacted my buddy that first had me on a show and said to him, what do you pay to be on your show? And he goes, nada, zilch, nothing. And I said, what are your obligations? He said, to have a guest every week. And I said, is that it? He goes, that's it. So that's why I'm doing Live Better Longer instead of a podcast.
Now, I know you've had Don Graves to talk about reverse mortgages. Tell us a little bit about other guests that you've had to build the show in that realm where you want to stay. Well,
you see the book back here on this side, that's Rewirement.
Right.
in the way you think about retirement planning. And that's written by my friend Jamie Hopkins, who was with the RICP designation program along with Dave Littell at the college until he departed at the end of last year, joined the Carson Group as their director of retirement research. And Jamie and I become good friends. In fact, we're working on an article together for an estate planning journal on long-term care planning and risk management and retirement for high net worth people. And so Jamie published Rewirement in May of last year. And so he agreed to come on my show, and we plugged the book. And so so that's why that book is autographed copy. Don's is autographed as well, and so on and so forth. But I've had my financial advisor on the show twice. He's a RIA and a CFA with about a $2 or $3 billion asset under management firm. Really a wonderful guy. And so he's been on. But I've also had a woman who teaches mindfulness. I had on a chiropractor. And I had on a psychologist who's developed heart-assisted therapy. Wow. And I've had a woman who left her corporate job and is now traveling the world doing a retirement blog and getting advertised. I've had on boomers who reinvented themselves later in life and are phasing into some type of entrepreneurial retirement. Mm-hmm. On and on and on. I try and keep it fresh. And one of the other areas that I've gotten into is caregiving. And you had a guest a week or two ago, Kathy Sikorsky, yes, who is in my neck of the woods. Kathy has been on my show. She's a recovering elder law attorney who's passionate about caregiving.
Mm-hmm. We had a ball with her.
Yep, she's a pistol. Pretty routine. So she's been on. And then I've had other people that have written books about caregiving and dementia and things along those lines. Again, all very important topics, as you mentioned earlier.
Sometimes it's hard to find guests. I will tell you that as the host of this TV show, although we're booked out for the next 6 weeks. And I think as we discussed off air, the 4 topics that seem to have taken us in the last year from 0 viewership to 42,000 plus have been in this order: long-term care insurance, Medicare, reverse mortgages, which I'm personally very happy about, and Alzheimer's/dementia, different types of dementia. That show seemed to touch a lot of people's heart and nerves. So we have started over the last several months to repeat our guests, quite frankly. And this is going to be one of the last couple of shows that we do 62 Who Knew with just 2 people. We're actually going to start having a minimum of 2, maybe 3 at a time. I think it's time for a long-term care insurance expert and a Medicare expert to be on together to talk about how they can work together, or that Medicare expert and the Alzheimer's expert together. We're going to start having panel shows with 2 or 3 people, that complement each other. Mm-hmm. Have you had any? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One thing you're doing, Mike, is, and I've been encouraged to do this, is to, in the beginning of each of my shows, talk a little bit about my business and maybe tell a real quick story about someone that I worked with and how I helped them, to give people a little bit more of an understanding. Because with my show, up until now, with few exceptions, I have made it all about my guest. Mm-hmm. I did a couple of times when I didn't have a guest lined up, particularly last fall. I did a Medicare show in the beginning of the open enrollment season.
Right.
And I had viewers from that, and I actually had people contact me, and so that worked out well. And then I also did another show on long-term care planning in November when it was Long-Term Care Awareness Month.
I remember that, yep.
Why November is Long-Term Care Awareness Month? Do you know why?
Why?
Because that's the month where everybody comes together at Thanksgiving to avoid talking about
it. That's funny. As you're saying that, I'm thinking that's so exactly correct.
Yeah, well, that was created by Jesse Sloan, who was the guy who founded the American Association for Long-Term Care Insurance out in California.
Yes, I know Jesse, yes.
I know.
Yeah, that is that is so true. That is actually a very cool thing.
I always tell people, don't talk about it on Thanksgiving or there'll be a food fight. But maybe on the day after, on Black Friday, maybe you can see what you can do about having the conversation to get it started.
Well, it's funny. Almost all of our guests from all walks of life, in-home care, long-term care insurance, almost every type of insurance that has to do with life or disability and health. And you brought it up, of course, in the very beginning. It is a rough conversation. It is a rough conversation, to have with your parents when you're almost reversing the role. You're taking the role as parent and going, look, I know you don't want to talk about this, but we simply have to. And that's very difficult emotionally, mentally, sometimes financially. It's a very difficult conversation.
Well, there's not a lot of what I call insurance humor out there, but I've come up with a few things over the years, and one of which early in my latest generation with our Borton Associates was I tell the people, I look at them very seriously and say, there's only two ways you can die. And they look at me like I'm crazy, and I'll go, yeah, conveniently and inconveniently.
That's I like it.
And, everybody wants to go conveniently, but most people don't.
Yeah.
Inconveniently, you may think it's not going to be much fun for you, but who it really is a drag for is your family.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
We had a superstar from the long-term care insurance world, and on our show that said something that, we are salesmen, and I'm not ashamed of that. When I sit down with seniors to talk about reverse mortgages, I am not selling them a reverse mortgage if they don't need it. I give them options, and if they need what I'm selling, that's a great thing. But I don't sell a reverse mortgage. But one of the legends that was on our show in your world, in the long-term care insurance world, said that he had come up with something. And as soon as he said it, I just went, wow. That when he's talking to specifically a man, in his 60s, still fairly good health, and let's talk about your long-term care insurance. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. I know I'll probably need it one day, but not now, not now. I don't want to talk about it. And he says his response always is, okay, let's put it away for this time. Let's kick the can down the road. Just want to leave you with this thought. How do you feel about your daughter giving you a bath? And that person usually goes, maybe we need to talk about long-term care insurance. Take those papers out. How much is it per month?
Yeah, I had a similar one. So how would you feel about having your daughter-in-law change your diaper?
Yeah, it sounds like it's funny, and it is, in a certain way. But again, what your television show is about, right here with 62 Who Knew is about, longer lifespans is a mixed blessing. And we have been fortunate enough twice, we've been fortunate enough twice to have a regional director from the Weizmann Institute in Israel, which is one of the finest institutes in the country that for decades has been bringing us things that many people are not even aware of, many things that have to do with CAT scans and immunotherapy. They're the leader in the world of so many things. There are so many pieces of equipment in hospitals throughout the world that if you look on the back of it, it'll say patent by the Weizmann Institute. And there are things coming, not in the next 30 or 40 years, but in the next 10 or 20 years that we have learned from these people that are going to take us from the 90s well into the low hundreds in the next couple of decades. And to think that we're expected, or at least the philosophy today, is to start working in your early to mid-20s and stop working approximately 40 years later. I'm not sure this world is geared for that. I'm not sure. No, I am sure 99% of the world is not going to be prepared to live, 40 years without a steady income, without a staggering plan to protect what they accumulated.
Oh, there's no question. I learned about a website when I first started my business, all these years ago now, called livingto100.com.
Oh, I'm gonna write that
I've shared
down.
that with a lot of people, and it was put up by a physician, and you fill out a whole bunch of online information and give them your email address and hit the submit button. and you get a printout that shows at what age you're going to expire.
Oh, that's
And
great.
the suggestion that if you drink a little less coffee, you get 6 more months, or if you exercise a little bit more, you may get another year, or something along those lines, right? The first time I did it, about 6, 7 years ago, it said I was going to be 99.
I like that.
And I like that too. But I have had this knowing for years that I'm going to make it to 100. And so when I did it again about a year and a half ago, it came up to age 101. And I thought to myself, have I changed much in my lifestyle? Maybe a little bit here or there. But then I thought, well, I'm still here. So some people are no longer here. I'm, 4 or 5 years older. And so that's the way, life expectancy works. And
That's
so
right.
I'm up to 101 now. Well, I fully expect that I'm going to make it there. I want my body and my mind to be in good shape too.
Exactly.
My money phrases. A successful retirement is when you get to the end of a long life with your money, your mind, and your body all at about the same time.
About the same time, yes. I'm going to
And
go.
so,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, please.
live better longer for me is about all of that.
Mhm.
And my wife and I are very much into holistic living. I'm 66 years old. I weigh 170 pounds. My resting heart rate is in the upper 50s. My blood pressure is 110/70. I take no medications, nor does
Oh
my
my
wife.
God.
I cycle. I do yoga. I go to a chiropractor. I have an infrared sauna. I drink purified water. I take food-based supplements. I eat organics, and my diet is becoming more and more plant-based. And so
Wow.
food is medicine. And
Mhm.
so I believe that chronic illness and a lot of the things that cause older people to be popping medications are entirely unnecessary and preventable if people would just be willing to wake up.
You
So
really
part
made
of
me
my
feel guilty with that list of stuff. You know
sorry,
that.
Mike. Sorry, I can't pull any punches here.
No, that's okay. It just, you can see from the cup. I just came from Chili's before the show. I think
So,
if I think
well,
if I go to
I've
living
got
to,
good old 2O here,
all right. Well, iced tea is mostly H2O, so I think yeah. I think if I
So,
go to the website livingto100.com, I think the result will be buy a shovel. That's what I happen to think my result would be.
so if somebody's thinking about an annuity or delaying Social Security to 70, it would be a nice idea to have some idea about how long they're going to live.
I think that's incredible.
It's one of the
Livingto100.com. 100
living
is the number, right? 100.
yes. Yep. So I tell financial advisors about it all the time because doing a Monte Carlo simulation showing the money running out at 95, you might want to rethink that.
Well, especially when you do a Monte Carlo simulation, I have to say for the majority of the world, and it runs out at 82. I'm not really that worried about the 95 people right
Well,
now.
so you
But
got to
the
back down.
82 and
You got to
84, it's my premise that those are the people that end up in a McDonald's going, would you like fries with that? Or in front of Walmart going, would you like a cart? And that's no way to end life.
No, it sure isn't. So it sure isn't. So at any rate, so we could talk about all kinds of stuff here. Retirement income planning. I'm a big fan of the flooring strategy, which gets a lot of attention from Steve Vernon from Stanford.
We have about 2 minutes left, but take it. Tell us the
Yep.
flooring strategy, please.
Well, this is where you take Social Security, any pension assets that may be available, and to the degree that it's not covering all of your necessary expenses, taking some of your portfolio, particularly the bond portion, and buy income annuities and create that income floor.
Thank you,
That,
Tom Hegna.
that enables you or your advisor to go long, as I call it, with equities and go more for growth because you don't need to worry about market downturns because you've got your income coming in. And then if you get a good old reverse mortgage,
New Jersey, reverse.
you can manage the sequence of returns risk. You can use that to stave off Social Security till later. There's, as Don puts it, it's the Swiss Army knife of retirement income plan.
That's exactly right.
There's so many things that go into a retirement income plan, and most of the accumulation world out there, advisors, are asleep at the switch, which is one reason my phone rings.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have about a minute and a half left. I want to absolutely thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you will come again on the show. I am going to be in New Jersey a couple of times in the next couple of months, so I absolutely want to come on your show. Maybe we get Don on at the same time. We'll have two reverse mortgage people and just flabbergast the world.
Well, we'll see about that. Don's pretty hard to nail down because he travels a lot.
He does. He's a very popular speaker, and rightfully so. But I do really and truly want to thank you. Were we able to get, I know we don't have all our tools that we normally do as the studio is being remodeled. Were we able to get the website up, John? And if not, Bill, tell us, how would people contact you? That's the best way to get a hold of you.
Very easily. My website is wrborton.com. My email is bill, B-I-L, at wrborton.com. And my phone number is 856-817-6100. So these will do. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Bill Borton.
That's where I found her.
So.
All right. Well, just a little less than 30 seconds left. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you come back again. I hope to be able to come up and do your show and break bread with you. With a little less than 30 seconds, next week we're having a very exciting show. We have a Mr. Mark Glickman coming on, who has engineered and is creating one of the largest national websites, informational websites for long-term care insurance. You know that's our tickle button here on 62 Who Knew. Join us next week. It was a great show. Thank you, Mr. Borton. Thank you to all our great audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.